In chapter 2, we have bali 5 questions. First one is, uh, what is an experimental unit? The experiment, the experimental unit is the physical entity which can be assigned at random to a treatment. Commonly, the experimental unit is the individual animal, and each animal is collected to a particular treatment group dependently of the other animals. Occasionally, depending on the treatment administered, the experimental unit may be bigger than the animals. Halimbawa or example, a litter or a cage or small than the animals, and part of the animals or an animals for a period of time. The section below gives various examples of experimental units. Question number 2. What do you mean by experimental subunit? The experimental subunit is the smallest division of experimental materials such that any two units may receive different treatment in the actual experiment. Question number 3. Under the condition can tanks be used as unit, and under which condition can individual fish of the tank be used? Can use a tank as unit the way it because have different types of tank. It depends to use. Various type of tank can be built or chosen. Example, circular, square, or rectangular. However, building tanks can be costly and care should be taken while designing a trial. A small mistake can ruin the research, requiring refutation. If tanks are supplied with the same source of water recirculated, bio or mechanically filtered, then variability in water quality parameter other than temperature would be very low. On the other hand, outdoor tanks without water circulation exchange vary greatly. Tanks close to wall and water supply canals can be affect water quality parameters and fish growth and survival. Practical exercises. Meron ditong two example. First example is, if a researcher is planning to conduct an experiment to determine the effect of 4 different types of hormones in spawning, what should be the experimental unit and which experimental system should be used? How many of the experimental unit and system would you suggest using? Based on my answer, it depends on the researcher if what experimental unit should be used. For me, much better to use for experiment the tank or aquarium because its dimension and capacity influence both which species can be helped, body size, swimming behavior, and the annual production volume, water volume, number of cohort, stocking density. The spawning tanks will be like a hospital tank with protected heater, so the fish are not burned. A slow-moving filter, sponge filter, so the eggs or fry are not sunk off. And good aeration. Depending on the spawning method, the spawning tank can be set up in a number of different ways. Example number 2 is, you are planning to conduct an experiment in 18 ponds to compare 2 strains of tilapia for breeding performance. How could you use the pond for your trial? Estimate the number of each strain of fish needed based on the different plans. Earth ponds are the most common and cheapest aquaculture system in the most countries and locations. Therefore, research results of ponds trial are directly applicable, and have wide use. The sizes of funds used vary depending on the purpose of culture and availability of land. A nursery fund may range from 50 to 200 meter, whereas a grow-out fund may vary from 500 meters to 1 hectare or even bigger. However, funds as experimental units for research purposes should not be large, as land itself is expensive and research requiring adequate replication is costly.